Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may we rise for the national anthem. Thereafter, the University of Ibadan anthem. President, West African Research and Innovation Management Association, Warima, and Vice Chancellor, Osho State University, Union Osun, former President of the West African Research and Innovation Management Association, and current Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, and Chairperson, Local or International Organizing Committee. Our keynote speaker, members of UI Council, Provost College of Medicine, Postgraduate College, University of Ibadan, and resource persons, deans of faculties and of students, directors of institutes and centers, members of Senate, heads of department, participants, members of the local organizing committee, and friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, Executive Council, and members of the West African Research and Innovation Management Association, Warima, I am delighted to welcome you to the 12th Warima Conference and Workshops being hosted by the University of Ibadan as part of the activities to celebrate the 70 years of the existence of this great university. Warima is grateful to the University of Ibadan for being a wonderful host. The theme of this year's conference and workshop is strengthening research, innovation, incubation, and knowledge product delivery for national and regional development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, why are we here? Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Warima noted that West African researchers are best placed to identify and address the challenges of their own countries and provide local national evidence to inform decision-making. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the overall objective of this international conference and workshops is to examine the strategies that will be utilized in strengthening research, innovation, incubation, and knowledge product delivery for national and regional development in West Africa. Although the focus of the conference workshop is West Africa, Warima still welcomes contributions, lessons, and experiences from any part of the world that will enhance the sub-region's achievement of national and regional development through research, innovation, incubation, and knowledge product delivery. It may interest this August Assembly to note that Warima was established in November 2006, and it is a professional body for research management in the West African sub-region. It operates at institutional and international levels, as well as across the research value chain, from research management to commercialization of research results and products. For the University of Ibadan, you already know that it was established in 1948, and up till now we are still celebrating. It is a year-long celebration of our 70 years of existence as a university, which has been producing high-quality human capital for Nigeria and other countries of the world, especially in the areas of human settlement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for this important open ceremony, it is my honor to formally welcome and invite to the lower table here. Yours is a bigger table. An ethical researcher, a dedicated teacher, sportsman, and professor of forest economics, former dean of the postgraduate school of this university, now postgraduate college, current vice chancellor, University of Osun, and current president of the West African Research and Innovation Management Association, Warima, Professor Labodi Pupola. I also welcome and invite to the high table the UI Platinum celebrant, a professor of geophysics, former dean, postgraduate school, now postgraduate college, University of Ibadan, former deputy vice chancellor academic, University of Ibadan, former president, West African Research and Innovation Management Association, Warima, and by the special grace of God, the 12th vice chancellor of our university, Professor Ibel Iduwola Yinka, FAS, being ably represented at this event by his Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor Kayode Adibowale, MNI. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, It is also my privilege to formally welcome and present to you a professor of veterinary and public health and preventive medicine, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the fourth person to occupy the role in our university, Professor Lanike K. Adeyema. Let me also welcome specially and invite to the high table the current Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic of our university, Professor Adeyinka Adenito. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is also my honor to also formally welcome a gifted administrator, former Vice Chancellor, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and former Secretary General, Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities, Professor M. Faborode. Yes. I so much admire Professor Faborode, and he cannot contest what I'm about to say, that Obafemi Awolowo University is the best university in Nigeria after UI. Our President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will take other recognitions later as I invite our President, Professor Labode Kupola, to please deliver his opening remarks. The President, sir. Just a minute, sir. Yes, let me quickly introduce the keynote speaker before I invite our President for his opening remarks. He is a Nigerian academic in the diaspora. Indeed, the Professor of African Studies at King's College London and Program Director at the African Leadership Center, a worthy alumnus of this university. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Abiodun Alao. May I now invite our President, Professor Labode Kupola, for his opening remarks. The President, sir. Or do I say Your Excellency?
Well, I want to crave the indulgence of the chairman of this event to recognize some of our colleagues from outside the country who have not been recognized this morning. Professor Jose Malete from Michigan State University, we welcome you. Then Alan Mokwana from African Academy of Sciences, we welcome you. So on that note, may I recognize the distinguished members of this high table. The whole of UI leadership is present here, starting from the Vice Chancellor, who is ably represented by the DVC admin. The DVC academic is here. The DVC Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships is also here. I recognize you all. I recognize the keynote speaker, Professor Abiodun Alao, my friend. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the city of Ibadan, which for all intents and purposes is the home of the West African Research and Innovation Management Association. This is the 12th conference of Warima, and I guess it's the third to be hosted by the University of Ibadan. We held the 11th Warima conference in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, early this year, and it was indeed historical because it was the first time ever that any of our activities in Warima will be hosted by a Francophone country. After that conference, our original plan was to follow up with another hosting in a francophone country. But we recall that in December 2016, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan expressed the willingness of the university to host Warima again as part of its 70th anniversary celebrations. And of course, we didn't have a choice for two reasons. Warima is UI, UI is Warima. And two, UI is the landlord of Warima. If we refused that request, we can as well be given quick notice. So we had to accept it. And so we are here in Ibadan for the first time. I would therefore like to, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, the executive members of the Warima, and indeed all members of the association, wish our host, the University of Ibadan, the first and the best, happy 70th anniversary, and many more years of fruitful contributions to humanity. The theme of this year's conference is strengthening research, innovation, incubation, and knowledge product delivery for national and regional development. Identification, planning, execution, and ownership of the processes in research and research management go a long way in enhancing the outcome and impact that research can make to sustainable development. For this to happen, research and innovation management remains key. Unfortunately, this as a concept is yet to be internalized in most universities and other higher educational institutions in sub-Saharan Africa. The West African Research and Innovation Management Association has therefore renewed its commitment to ensuring that this ugly trend is reversed. Since the last meeting, the association has engaged in partnerships with sister organizations such as Warima, as well as the African Academy of Sciences, in collaboration with the Wellcome Trust, to further develop the associations and increase our membership drive, as well as our influence in the sub-region. Our initial plans include: 1, to employ a full-time administrator for the first 6 months to coordinate the following activities: development of a strategic plan, and also training to create a database of members with detailed information, to increase membership of the association, follow up on the subscriptions to increase income of the association, and also identify grant opportunities for the expansion of the activities and scope of this association. In other words, we're just trying to embark on the process of rejigging the association altogether. This, if and when the plans come to fruition, will give some support structures to conduct the business of the association. We are in the process of concluding this deal. Also, Warima is collaborating with the Association of West African Universities, AWAU, to develop curricula for postgraduate programs in research and innovation management. This is with a view to addressing the dearth of human resource in this very important field across the sub-region. It is our hope that we shall conclude all these within the first quarter of the year 2019 to enable us achieve the aims and objectives of these programs. We would like to appreciate all our partners and to assure them that we will do all that's within our ability to actualize these laudable plans and projects. To ensure the optimization of the benefits of this conference, we have, as usual, assembled a galaxy of stars that will facilitate the 3 pre-conference workshops that were held Monday and Tuesday, and the sub-theme and the theme of this conference. We have also invited Professor Abiodun Alao, who will be speaking with you in a short while, from the King's College London, to deliver the keynote address. Distinguished participants, kindly join me in welcoming and appreciating these ladies and gentlemen who have worked very hard in the last 2 days and who will continue to work hard to ensure that we have a wonderful conference. We remain ever grateful to our enduring partners, the World Health Organization and Essence, for their support over the years for these very useful workshops. We also appreciate Sarima, our big sister, for the sustained nurturing that we have enjoyed from it over the years. In conclusion, I would like to appreciate our host institution, the University of Ibadan, for the warm hospitality accorded us since our arrival. I'm a son of the soil here, but I've still been treated like a guest. I've enjoyed every moment that I've been here since Sunday. We want to thank you so very much. I wish all of us wonderful moments in the course of this conference. I thank you all, and God bless.
Our President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Warima has been able to assemble at this workshop and conference all those who are involved in research and innovation management in various institutions, as well as those interested in undertaking cutting-edge research. All the participants that have been able to go at this conference and workshops are Vice Chancellors, Deputy Vice Chancellors, Directors of Research Institutes, Provosts, Deans of Colleges, Deans of Faculties, and Provosts of other colleges, Research Directors, Technology Transfer Professionals, Senior Academics and Researchers from universities and research institutes, Research Administrators, Policymakers in government, parastatals, and non-governmental organizations. Other categories of individuals include early career researchers, desirous of acquiring skills in research management. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to take another short time out to please recognize the distinguished presence of the Bosa, University of Ibadan, being ably represented by Mr. I.O. Pupola. Yes, I've just been told that our registrar is here, and she's been ably represented by the most senior deputy registrar in our university, Mr. Alexander Oladeji. May I also specially welcome and present to you the Provost, Postgraduate College, Professor J.O. Babalola. I also welcome and present to you the Dean, Faculty of Technology, University of Ibadan, Professor Kola Ogedengbe. I also specially recognize the Director of Research Management Office, University of Ibadan, Professor Yerunke Odunola. At this point, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I invite the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships in our university and the chairperson of the local organizing committee of this event, Professor Olanike Adeyemo, for our welcome remarks.
The President of Warima, my Vice Chancellor, represented by Professor K.O. Adebowale, DVC Admin, DVC Academic Professor Adeyinka Aderinto, Professor Faborodi, our forefather, the guest speaker, Professor Alau, who I'm meeting for the first time today, other distinguished professors here present, deans of faculty, provosts, other vice chancellors of other university, who we like to say are campuses of University of Ibadan. And I have the microphone so I can say whatever I want to say. When you hold the microphone, you can say your own. But that is what we believe here strongly. UI is the first and the best. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Olaniyan Otello, as we normally call him. And the nice thing about University of Ibadan is that since you are here, we can arrange to have your degree validated if you didn't finish from here. But one thing I would like you to know is that even if you didn't finish from here, you must have been taught by somebody that came to University of Ibadan. That is the pedigree of the University of Ibadan. I want to warmly welcome you to Warima. It's a distinct pleasure to host Warima this year, being part of the activities to mark our 70th anniversary as a university. And we are all very, very glad to have you here. I want to say that the importance of research management and innovation management in Africa, especially West Africa, cannot be overemphasized. So Warima is adequately positioned to make this happen. I like to say that, I say because maybe most of our countries are were British colonies. We are patterned after the British system. And what that means, the disadvantage to that is that we have assured salaries. It's not like the US, whereby half of your salary has to come from your research grants. So that makes us a bit laid back about the way we consider research innovation management. And that is the only way to grow our university, to grow our countries. Because research should not end on the shelves. It should not end in learned journals. So I'm very sure by coming to Warima, to this day, if this is your first time here, we can take the opportunity of all the things we have learned in the last 2 days. We've had 2 days of workshop starting from Monday. And I've had very, very good feedback from the participants that they had a very nice time of it. We had one that was about pathways to technology commercialization. So they had a choice. And it was very heartwarming for me that our participants were spoiled for choice. Some of them came and said, oh, you shouldn't have had the different ones. I wanted to be here, I wanted to be there. I said, well, you have to decide which one is more important. And we had one that was about best practices in research quality assurance. Because now research is in the public domain. So you cannot afford to put anything wishy-washy out there. So we need to take quality assurance also seriously when we are talking about research management. Fundamentals of research also was part of the first day. And the second day, we went on to talk about professionalization of research management. A fantastic job. I think they deserve a round of applause. And I want to say, for me, it's about the experience you bring to the table. I don't usually, when I want to organize something like this, we don't usually looking for big names. We want to know the stuff you have, because what you don't have, you cannot give. So we want to thank you for all you have done in the last 2 days. I want to especially thank ASU. I'm a comrade, true and true. Yeah, to the core. So I want to thank them for the privilege we have to be able to do this. I know ASU is fighting a just cause. I'm aware of the cause, and they have been magnanimous enough to see this to us as part of occasion marking 78th anniversary. I want you to give ASU a round of applause. And I want to plead to the government to actually listen so that Nigeria can actually be a better place. Finally, I want to thank those people that make me look so good, the LOC. Atewo, Atariwo, like we say here. I chair the local organizing committee, but actually it's the people on page 11 that make me look good. If you are here, I want you to stand up for recognition. They are the ones that have been running around, going up and down to host this event. And we had so many several hiccups. But I'm a very, very optimistic person. I always tell them it will happen. This one will come and it will pass. My people, it has come and it came beautifully. And we, Dr. Bukola Adeshina, Dr. Adedoyin Agoro, Dr. Oye Oyewole, Dr. Ewo Mobawale, Dr. O Oshino, Mrs. Catherine Ofatoki, Mr. A.T. Akindele, Mr. S.A. Badijo, our protocol, who was the one responsible for conveying people up and down. Mrs. Tejo Aja, who is the coordinator of Warima, Mr. Ewo Adekola, Mr. O.M. Desmenu, and Mr. O. Elijah. I thank you all for the hard work, and we thank God that it all came together ready. Once again, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I always say,
the President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I also quickly recognize the distinguished presence of the Vice Chancellor of Landmark University, and indeed an a worthy alumnus of this university. He was in this university from 1987 to 1992, Professor Adeniyi Olayanju. I also welcome the Dean Faculty of Arts, Professor Ademola Omobewaji da Silva. You are most welcome, sir. Yes, I have also cited the last dean of the postgraduate school and the first provost, postgraduate college, Professor Jonathan Babalola. Yes, I think, yes. Okay, sir. Okay. The former dean of education, Professor M.K. Akinshola. You are most welcome, sir. It's open to individuals, universities, policy makers, and research units in both public and private sectors. In fact, anyone who is interested in improving the effectiveness of research, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan and the host of this conference and workshop, Professor IBADAN, FAS, being ably represented by the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Administration, Professor Kayode Adibowale, MNI.
The Vice Chancellor of Landmark University, Omuaran, Professor Adeniyi Olayanju, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Registrar of our university, ably represented by Mr. Alexandra Oladeji, the Bossa, also ably represented, President Warima, Professor Labode Popola, also the Vice Chancellor of Osun State University, Professor Faborode, former Secretary General of the Committee of Vice Chancellors, are in attendance, Directors of Research and Innovation Management, Warima, our foreign guests, the keynote speaker, Professor Alao, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Vice Chancellor would have loved to be here, but unfortunately, he had to be out of the university, but is still busy with both national and university affairs. So he brings his glad tidings to all of us. I'm going to read his speech. He has left the speech behind. He didn't go with the speech. So I will try to read the speech that he has left behind. I'm greatly agreed to host us in this beautiful, ancient, urban, serene, and cosmopolitan city of Ibadan. I welcome you to the first and the best university in Nigeria, where there has been cross-fertilization of ideas and research findings since Monday. The 12th Warima International Conference and workshops, like the past ones held in the West African sub-region, promise to offer ample opportunities to discuss issues that are germane to research and innovation management and are of mutual interest for delegates from other countries, as well as renew contacts with friends and colleagues. Strengthening research, innovation, incubation, strengthening research, innovation, incubation, and knowledge product delivery for national and regional development. The theme of this year's international conference and workshops is apt and timely. It will reawaken us as researchers and innovation managers on the importance of focusing our research efforts on national and regional development, especially to reposition the West African sub-region for economic and social well-being. University of Ibadan, the premier and the doyen of universities in Nigeria, started as a college of the University of London in 1948. Coincidentally, we celebrated our 70th anniversary last week, and I know that the celebration will still continue even up to 2019. With academic program, it started with academic programs in arts, sciences, and medicine. It became a full-fledged independent university in 1962, along with some other first-generation universities. The university has since evolved into a comprehensive citadel of learning comprising 16 faculties, 2 colleges of medicine and postgraduate units and then centers. The university is gradually transiting to a postgraduate university with a current students ratio of 40% undergraduates and 60% postgraduate students. The main thrust of the university for the 21st century is to be a world-class institution for academic excellence geared towards meeting societal needs. Today, the university is consistently ranked among the prestigious universities globally. Permit me to commend the selfless effort put by the local organizing committee of the conference and workshops headed by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, RISP, Professor Olanike Adeyemo, with a view to guaranteeing conducive and rewarding intellectual exercises here in Ibadan. The University of Ibadan is a tranquil and peaceful environment, and Ibadan City is naturally endowed with rich cultural history and artifacts dating back to several centuries. The 3 parallel pre-conference workshops, which will focus on mastering, building, and strengthening capacity in research uptake and utilization for national and regional development, benchmarking performance indicators for reflective assessment of West African Research University, and best practices in research quality assurance have been carefully put together. Correspondingly, I know they have been handled by experts and seasoned facilitators from different parts of the world to further hone our skills to take leading roles in national and regional development through our research and innovation management. Finally, it is pertinent to implore you to take full advantage of the rich assembly of highly skilled researchers from different parts of the West African sub-region to network for collaborative research that can advance our sub-region. Please take time outside the conference to visit our departments and research institutes to build up lasting relationships with our academia. Let's make the most use of time which we are here. We have the opportunity to learn, to share, and to cross-fertilize ideas. Please enjoy the hospitable nature of our great University of Ibadan and its staff and students. On behalf of the Vice-Chancellor and also the former President of Warima, Professor Ebelidowu Olayinka, FAS, I want to welcome you all, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. The Acting Vice-Chancellor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please let me take another short time out to quickly recognize the distinguished presence of the former Dean, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, Professor Olusegun Ademowo. I also recognize the distinguished presence of Professor Mikhail Olayinka Buhari, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research, Innovation, and Technology, University of Ilorin. Thank you, sir. Now, we want to present this citation. Oh, yes, sir. May I also specially welcome the Dean Faculty of Law of the University of Ibadan, Professor Adeniyi Olatubosun. Now, we need to know much about our keynote speaker. It is therefore my pleasure to invite Dr. Adedoyin Agboru of our Department of English, Faculty of Arts, to please step forward and present the citation on the keynote speaker, Dr. Agboru. Yes, I've been told that before we go into that, we should take the guru messages from our international partners. The first person to present the guru message is from the Research Systems Manager at the African Academy of Science. She's here, representing the African Academy of Science, AAS. Please join me to welcome to this podium to present the Guru message, Allen M. Mokwana. She is stepping forward to present the Guru message on behalf of the African Academy of Science. Let me quickly recognize the
President of Warima, the Vice Chancellors, Deputy Vice Chancellors of all the universities, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I wasn't prepared to speak today, so I've been taken by surprise, and I apologize. If I had prepared, I would know all the dignitaries and observe protocol. But I do observe protocol, sirs, and mesdames. On behalf of the African Academy of Sciences, I would like to say that we are happy to partner with the West African Research and Innovation Management Association to build the capacity, as Professor Lapopole said. Our intention... Okay, Professor Labode, that one I can pronounce. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So it's our intention to partner with Warima and the other RIMAs, as mentioned earlier, to develop Warima so that we try and boost research on the West African side of our continent, because we all do agree that research and innovation is what will drive Africa ahead. We have to find solutions to our problems, and the solutions will only be found by the researchers on the continent. And as the Academy, we fund research and innovation, and we are willing to work with all the universities and the associations to help achieve this. So I can see, I've had several, professors and doctors and all the people present. I believe it's your duty to carry out, to find solutions to the problems that affect everyone on the continent, starting with your region. And so we are partnering with Warima to develop a strategic plan and training plan. We want Warima to increase membership, not just to Nigeria, but to the whole of West Africa, and try to influence how research management and innovation is carried out in the area. We're also willing to support Warima to grow from strength to strength. But I do thank Professor Labodi and the team, and Madam Chairperson of the organizing committee. Thank you for organizing a very good conference. We had lovely workshops the previous 2 days. We thank you. And on that note, and on my behalf and the behalf of the African Academy of Sciences, I wish you all the best at this conference.
The second Google message, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is from the immediate past president of the South African Research and Innovation Management Association, Sarima George Jackson Malete.
Thank you very much. I am also like Alan, taken by surprise, but thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm the past president of the Southern African Research and Innovation Management Association. I would like to thank the president and the distinguished table for allowing me this opportunity, and all protocol observed as well. On behalf of Warima, and the vice president of Warima is also here, Mr. Ayanda Noma, who participated in one of the workshops for the past 2 days on innovation management. We'd like to thank the Warima team for inviting us and allowing us to share our experiences in Southern Africa on research and innovation management. The president was also supposed to be here, but due to limitations in funding and other activities, she was not able to participate, but she does send her best wishes to Warima and to the West African members of the association. We have a very strong relationship with Warima. We are currently partnering with Warima in several projects, one of which is to strengthen the research management capacity of science granting councils in Africa. We hope that, we are not engaged as yet with the Nigerian Science Granting Council, but we hope that that is one of the long-term goals of the project, to engage additional science granting councils, because these are the ones that are going to fund research in our countries. We've been working with Warima from the time it was established, and we will continue to do so and continue to work together and collaborate together. I'd like to thank you, and we look forward to a very enjoyable and productive conference over the next 2 days. Thank you so much.
Now, to the citation on the keynote speaker, as I invite Dr. Adedoyin Agboro for the presentation. Dr. Agboro.
It's a privilege this morning to be asked to read the citation of Professor Abiodun Alao. Can you kindly rise for recognition, sir? Thank you. Born 1st April 1961, Professor Abiodun Alao is Professor of African Studies at King's College, London, and the Program Director of the African Leadership Center at the College School of Global Affairs. Professor Alao studied history at the University of Ibadan for his first degree. He proceeded to the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, for his master's in international relations. Afterwards, he obtained a Ford Foundation scholarship for his doctorate in war studies at King's College, University of London between 1996 and 1998. He held the SSRC MacArthur Postdoctoral Fellowship. Professor Abiodun Alao has written extensively on African security issues, including 8 books and 10 encyclopedia entries, occasional working papers, and up to 60 academic articles, book chapters, and so forth. He has held teaching and research positions at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, and the University of Zimbabwe. He is also a temporary lecturer at the Kano campus of the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria. Professor Alao joined the staff of King's College, London in April 1992, and rising through the ranks, he was made the first Professor of African Studies in the college in 2014. Professor Alao is on the governing councils of the Osun State University, Osogbo, and the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFUN, both in Nigeria. Professor Alao has been involved in key policy decisions on Africa and has contributed to policy formulation at the highest levels for institutions such as the United Nations, the African Union, World Bank, the European Union, ECOWAS, and for individual countries. For example, he was on the panel of academic experts that advised the Office of the UN Secretary General on the civil war in Sierra Leone and was also the co-author of the concept paper for the re-establishment of the Common Defense and Security Policy for the African Union. He was also a member of the 4-person team that wrote the first threat assessment report for the government of Rwanda after the genocide, and also co-authored the first post-Civil War national security strategy framework for Liberia. I think that deserves another applause. Thank you. He was also a member of the team that worked on development of donor countries, effectiveness in fragile states. Among other international assignments, Professor Alao has undertaken consultancy to ECOWAS on the development of implementation plan for the policy framework for security sector reform and governance, consultant to ECOWAS on the development of ECOWAS policy framework for the code of conduct for the armed forces and security services of ECOWAS member states. He is also a consultant to the UNDP on understanding radicalization. Join me as I welcome to the podium the first Professor of African Studies in King's College London, Professor IBADAN Alao.
I think I have to thank my colleague. For a moment, I couldn't just recognize who she was trying to describe. Thank you very much for that. The Vice Chancellor and his representatives, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, President and members of Warima, my big brother and friend, Professor Mike Faborode, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I cannot help but betray a measure of emotion in delivering this lecture. 35 years ago, almost to the month, I graduated from this university. And 31 years ago, again almost to the month, I left Nigeria, the country of my birth. Although I have since then had several opportunities to visit many Nigerian universities, I have never really had the opportunity of officially visiting the University of Ibadan, the institution I call home. You can thus imagine how very grateful I am to the organizers of this conference for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. I'm very proud of and I fondly cherish my University of Ibadan days, where I must say that I was a beneficiary of contemporary geniuses in my field of study. To my former teachers, colleagues, and friends at the Ibadan School of History, this is a big thank you from a proud and grateful heart. It is indeed great for me to be back to where, for me, it all began. But with this expression of emotion also comes a confession of diffidence. Going by the caliber of people that have given keynote addresses in the past, I see myself as comparing indescribably low. I apologize in advance that this keynote address might fall below the standard to which you have become already accustomed. In the 12 years of its existence, the West African Research and Innovation Management Association, Warima, has become a leading association for the advancement of research and scholarship in West Africa. From a modest beginning, it has spread across the region, redefining research agendas, strengthening methodological approaches, and pursuing clarity on pursuit of what is of concern to West African sub-region. May success continue to attend your efforts in these directions. The theme of your conference this year is very symbolic, and I'm not just saying this so as to find an entry point to this keynote address. The future of West African sub-region lies almost entirely on the ability of its scholars to use their knowledge for regional development and the coming together of researchers across countries and across disciplines to meet sub-regional needs. Indeed, in this era of globalization, the contagious nature of challenges confronting countries within specific geographical region demands seeking solutions across boards. What further makes meetings like this more important is the inwardness in which the world is now looking in the management of its affairs. Indeed, recent global developments like Britain exiting Europe and the election and assumption of office of Donald Trump as American president have added another impetus to the need to look at the future of Africa in a world that is now beginning to look more inwards. It is also important to show the world what an intellectually engaging West Africa can mean to other regions of the world. Before going to the main body of this address, let me extend my preface with a few sentences about Africa as a whole and the perception scholars, especially those outside the region, have of the continent. Indeed, Africa is a diverse continent. This diversity has made it vulnerable to a catalogue of misrepresentation, leading mainly to blanket assumption and extrapolated deductions. The broad generalization of research in the continent has often been based on pre-existing notions that often lead to empirical falsification. Perhaps the most extreme outcome of all this is the narrative that sees Africa as a problem that needs to be solved. This is farrago nonsense. Indeed, instead of being a problem to be solved, the continent is indeed a voice to be heard. But of all the regions of Africa, West Africa is the one where integration has been most successful. Through the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, there has been successful attempt to ensure a form of mutually reinforcing relationship across countries. The last 2 decades have also witnessed major transformation in the region, both in the term of development and the quality and quantity of people determined to make something great out of the continent. Warima and other similar associations should be identified as one of those fighting the stereotypical depictions of the subcontinent. What I've decided to do in this keynote address is to share my thoughts on the place of the continent. Here, I believe I can speak with a degree of authority for 3 reasons. The first, and the most important, is that I'm a West African, and I wear my regional identity badge with enormous pride. Second, I have, in a very modest way, attempted to study the region through the lenses of my discipline, which are humanities and social sciences. And third, I've had a bit of an opportunity to travel to virtually all the countries in the sub-region, appreciating their successes, understanding their challenges, suffering their pains, and envisaging their anticipated glory. In undertaking this task, permit me to start with the definition of operational terms so that we can have conceptual clarity. What is academic research? While not going into profound questions of epistemology, academic research can be simply defined as systemic investigation into a problem or solution where the intention is to identify facts that will assist in solving problems within a society. Although nothing in this definition implicitly says that those who can do this are academics, or it can be done within the universities or similar institutions, these are the general assumptions. After all, it is mainly in universities that we have people whose tool of earning their daily bread is logic and reasoning. 2 things are somewhat implicit in the definition. First, is that academic research should be geared towards societal advancement. What this implies is that even if you get your doctorate from the best university in the world, and you cannot use your knowledge for the advancement of your society, you are just merely literate. You are not educated. The second thing implicit in this definition is that there are different types of research. Those geared towards theoretical postulations, those focusing on policy-oriented issues, and those concentrating on action research. Although in the last decade, the connection between the academic and policy researches have become intertwined. Indeed, when one considers how academics and their works have influenced policy spheres and how practitioners have shaped research agendas, the distinction between the academic and the practitioner have become quite problematic and tenuous at best. Perhaps a takeoff point is to pose a major question. What is the standard of academic research across countries in West Africa? In the answer to this question, one sometimes finds oneself appalled by the extent of negative views about standard of education in the continent, frustrated by the reluctance to appreciate the peculiarities of scholarship in the subcontinent, irritated by the simplistic presentation of the West African sub-region, disappointed by some West African scholars' implicit endorsement of these negative assertions, outraged by the lack of recognition of some of the positive changes taking place in the educational standards of the continent, dissatisfied by the double standard with which judgments have been passed about West Africa and indeed Africa, disturbed by the apocalyptic predictions of some conclusions about research, and most importantly, repulsed by the increasingly nonchalant responses of some West African scholars to pessimism and stereotypical depictions of their region. The ultimate outcome of all this is a lack of recognition to the effort being made by West Africans. Yes, there are challenges, but it's also fair to recognize that many West African researchers are striving to make significant contributions to scholarship despite enormous odds. Time will only permit me to do a few things in this keynote address. First is to look at academic research, and to look at why academic research is important for regional development in West Africa. Second is to share my thoughts on some ways that I think that productive academic research can be undertaken. Third is to remind you all of the glorious past that we all can look up to for inspiration in the pursuit of greater glory. Fourth is to suggest some areas where I think we need to look in the future for academic research. And fifth is to identify some pitfalls which we should all avoid. Bringing all this together in about 30 minutes is no small task. Academic research is needed to properly define development and put it in the context of the societal peculiarities. Contrary to what is often thought, development is, to an extent at least, context-based and can only be properly appreciated when it is done within the framework of the society that is designed to serve. It is only the development agenda that is well rooted in academic research that can deliver services to the population. Even deciding the nature of the type of development that is needed is in itself a product of research. Academic research will allow for a deeper understanding of issues, challenges, and events. When issues are studied and dissected across board, the understanding becomes broader. It also becomes easier to identify and track trends and patterns and to map scenarios for the future. Second, employing academic research for the development will assist in bridging the gap between the academic and the practitioner. This, to me, is quite important. As I've always argued, the gap between the academic and the practitioner in any field can be a huge one. While the academic is thinking to a conclusion, the practitioner is thinking to a decision. While the academic can decide what to think, the practitioner is deciding what to do. All these involve different mental processes, but West Africa indeed needs more of this. But more than all the above, research endeavors will help generate knowledge that is authentically African. We should endeavor to ensure that we generate knowledge that is relevant to our need. Africa has for long been gullible consumers of knowledge generated from elsewhere. Anyone who determines the direction of the knowledge you consume dictates everything about your existence. The age-long saying that he who plays the pipers dictate the tune cannot be more appropriate than the way external narratives dominate thinking, policy, and perception about Africa. For a long time, the politics of knowledge production was not in favor of Africa. For example, Right from kindergarten, English-speaking African children were taught the popular nursery rhyme, A is for apple, where most of the children have never seen an apple before because the fruit is not produced in many African countries. They therefore had to associate the alphabet A with the image of a product produced elsewhere, thus beginning the process whereby the knowledge they are consuming is externally conceived. Secondary school students were made to study the geography of North America when they do not know the capital cities of African countries. In many universities, the exploit of Napoleon Bonaparte was forced down the throat of undergraduate students who were not taught about the activities of Dedan Kimathi, who led the Mau Mau rebellion in Kenya. Now, how can research be harnessed? How can research be better done? Now, let me share my thoughts with you on the ways in which I think academic research can be harnessed to fulfill identified roles. The first to me is through demand-driven initiatives, such as consultancies by policy institutions to deliver informed data and base it on solid academic research. There should be a supply-driven initiative by academic researchers undertaking policy-oriented and action research to feed into policy and practice. This I know has started, but it needs to be continued. Now, I also want to suggest that African scholars should endeavor to collaborate across disciplines. Most of the challenges confronting the continent today can only be properly understood using multidisciplinary lenses. Indeed, the way disciplines are now being encouraged to come together even in writing research proposals is quite astonishing. Africa seems to be lacking behind in this, and it will be necessary that we address this gap. Now, I need to remind you all that Africa, and indeed West Africa, have impacted the world, and we can draw inspirations from this. We are not being asked to do what we have not done before. Africa's predominant position in human evolution has been confirmed beyond any shadow of doubt. Neolithic revolution is now confirmed to have arisen in the area surrounding Egypt. Techniques for working in copper have been operational in North Africa since the end of the 4th millennium BC. Egyptian pyramids date back to 2000 BC. Pastoralism had been established in the region that later became Ethiopia by around 5000 BC. Metallurgy had spread across what later became West Africa during the 800 BC to 200 BC, and cultures like the Nok in the present-day Nigeria had been prominent by around 1000 BC. So, in terms of institution of learning, Africa has quite a lot of ancient academic institutions. Sankore University is one that there was a time when we were someone no one knew. In the case of the content of our research, we should not foolishly glorify our past or our culture. Where these are bad, we should condemn it and stay away from it. There are indeed aspects of our culture that are antithetical to research activities, and we should run away from them. Surely, you will agree with me that the culture that requires children to be quiet and not to challenge adults is not only one that is banal, but that is one that is not reasonable in the purpose of research. Questions should be encouraged. Orthodoxy should be challenged. Unhealthy conventions should be rejected. Useful dissension should be encouraged. Critical thinking should be prioritized, and innovative and path-breaking ideas, especially in the young ones, should be commended. Also, in the content of what we teach, we need to be more critical. The contents of the curricula being taught in many schools may have unwittingly contributed to governance problems that confront the continent. For example, as the late Adele Afigo noted, history students in secondary school across West Africa learned with pride the story of Mansa Musa, the Malian leader who, in a desire to demonstrate the enormity of the wealth of his empire, performed an extravagant pilgrimage to Mecca. Students were taught how he overwhelmed his host with his wealth. Stories like this should have awakened students to the reality that looting of African treasures for such extravagant living in foreign land has long antecedents. This may predispose students not to see anything wrong in the attitude of present-day politician leaders acquiring properties abroad at the expense of the state. Finally, on the issue of structure, we have to be frank with ourselves and to admit that our institutions are weak. Indeed, while with the fury of Old Testament prophet, I reject the whole notion of pessimism, let me openly admit that I believe that the African continent is suffering from AIDS. This time around, however, I'm not talking of AIDS as in the disease, but AIDS, an acronym that stands for Acute Institutional Deficiency Syndrome. Acute Institutional Deficiency Syndrome. There are very few institutions across the continent which sustained credibility can be built. Institutions in the continent either completely weak or selectively efficient. The implications of this can be seen in everything. Once our traditional and governance structure are strong, we'll be in a position to tell our children that knowledge is more important than wealth, because you have to look after wealth, whereas knowledge looks after you. We'll be able to teach our gregarious and fashion-conscious youth that goods are made in the factory, whereas brands are made in the mind. Then we'll also be able to tell our greedy political class about the transitory nature of life and the mutability of human existence, and we all will be able to allow ourselves the modesty of self-congratulations that we did our best. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend the association's determination to give Africa a voice. As I've always argued, Africa is no longer a problem to be solved, but a voice to be heard. There are a lot of positive changes taking place in Africa, including the measure and renewed confidence with the way in which the continent now confronts its challenges, the boldness with which it engages the world, and the gradual resurgence or reinvention of some traditional practices that still work in Africa, despite attempts over the centuries to frustrate them. There's also a measure of assertiveness that is becoming prevalent in the continent, especially among the youths who are determined to evoke a new narrative about the continent of their birth. What I think should further energize a meeting of this nature are crucial questions that I think you should ask yourself. Is Africa striving to succeed on world terms or precisely on Western terms? Should the continent set its own standard of voice and agency? Beyond voice, should Africa's ability to break out of essentialist Orientalist trope of object of development into a reinvention of notion of progress be sufficient into making the continent an agent? How are Africans leapfrogging and finding non-linear pathways to progress and sharing this with the world? Answers to some of these questions are things that will get your attention. God and history will not forget your actions. In all things, we should always remember one important fact. Africa does not belong to us. We hold it in trust for future generations. I thank you for your presence and your patience in listening to me.
The strengthening research, innovation, incubation, and that keynote address with intimacy and candor. In another decided manner, may we put our hands together for Professor IBADAN, our keynote speaker. Thank you, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite Professor Oyerunke Odunola, Director, Research Management Office of this university, to please step forward for the vote of thanks. Professor Odunola.
Members of the High Table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, All protocols duly extended. On behalf of the chief host of the 12th Warima Conference and Workshops, Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka, the Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, and the entire management team of the university, I wish to thank the president of Warima, our own Professor Labode Pokuola, and members of Warima for the opportunity granted to the university to host the 12th Warima Conference and Workshops. We are very grateful.